Welcome back to another episode of another triathlon podcast brought to you by Mana Apparel. Today, we're going to switch things up a little bit. We are very lucky to have two amazing guests, and we've got hardly any racing going on right now in the pro world. And I know we had a little bit of racing in Brazil this past weekend, but we wanted to take this opportunity with this little break before Texas to bring on two special guests. I've been blessed to get to meet both of them through social media and racing together. Just most recently in Oceanside, the two guests were both at the course and had some great days themselves. But I want you to both to have everyone hear about them and their journeys because it's pretty amazing what they've overcome to get to where they are and continue to do and raise awareness. So we're lucky to have David Whelan with us and Annie Brooks as well. Both triathletes, both have different stories. But Annie, why don't you kind of give us an idea of where you're at now, where you just were, and we can go into your story a little bit later. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I've just hopped from West Coast to East Coast, so just getting a bit adjusted at the moment. I'm now in Chattanooga, and I'm going to be checking out a bit of the bike course here with the hope to race next year. So I'm a look pro go slow triathlete, as I call myself. I got into triathlon in 2014, and kind of been hooked ever since I started doing it.
That's amazing. You're battling epilepsy, correct? And that was something before you got into triathlon, you had already kind of figured out in, I think, 2012 or so. And then triathlon really helped you get through some of the early years?
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, I still, as I call it, have active epilepsy, so it isn't controlled. Unfortunately, I've moved around different medication, unfortunately, and I still have seizures. So training for triathlon keeps my mind occupied. As everyone knows, when you're training and especially when you're out racing, you literally can't let anything in your mind because all you're thinking about is what's next on the agenda. And I find it amazing, and it makes me very happy, which is part of it. I don't feel stressed from it, which has been great.
I just realized both of your lives changed in 2012. And Annie with her diagnosis, and David, your accident was in 2012, correct? Right?
It was, March of 2012.
That's wow. That's crazy. It's like I didn't know I was having seizures because I have focal impaired awareness seizures and focal awareness seizures. So most people know as epilepsy being tonic-clonics, the grand mals, where you physically see something happening. And unfortunately, because I don't really remember, it's very vague. It wasn't picked up, and I was having them quite a while before 2012. But 2012 was the actual diagnosis, and then. Wow. My husband was into triathlon and was like, why don't we try this sprint? And then, that definitely really helped.
So when you first did that sprint, was there, obviously a lot of nerves. There's nerves in any triathlon anyways, but was there any time during that event where you had some concerns or issues, or did it go pretty smoothly and it was like, wow, maybe this can be something I can do more?
I think probably the latter, actually. And you just said that. I was like, no, I don't think I actually thought anything about my epilepsy. I just thought I'll get on with it. And then if I have to pull over, sometimes I'm quite lucky and I get an aura, which is almost like a warning sign. And I have to take that seriously. So I'm always like, well, if I have to stop, I have to stop. But it didn't. And that's when I realized maybe I'm onto something here. Maybe this is what I need to be doing to keep my mind occupied.
That's crazy. It's amazing what sports can do in general, but obviously the Challenge Athletes Foundation and other organizations that have brought some of this to light and all the work that you're doing, Annie, for the PCIP world is really amazing to see out there. It's inspiring to us as athletes. And for me, whenever I'm on the course and come across another athlete who is going through way more than I'm going through, I'm going through lactate, and that's about it.
You're going through high lactate and a high heart rate.
Yeah, exactly. And then, David, so 2012 was when you had your accident at work. Kind of walk us through what's happened since then. And were you into sports before then? Were you doing triathlon before then or any of the stuff that you're doing now?
Yeah. Before I was injured, I was going to school to be a paramedic firefighter. So I was going to the gym, working out, training, trying to get ready for that whole world. And but as far as like 5Ks, 10Ks, triathlons, all of that, like all of this is brand new to me. Like I knew how to get in a pool and not drown, But, it's only been, since the last 3 years that I've been able to make it back and forth in a pool without having like a massive anxiety attack. So all of this is really, really completely new to me. But yeah, just, I think kind of like a lot of people, I caught the bug pretty quickly and it's spun wildly out of control from there.
And obviously for
As it does.
for you, there's a lot of other aspects to this in order for you to race, because there's a lot of monetary aspects to it outside of just swim, bike, run and the bike and everything you need. You've got to have prosthetics that are capable of doing these things as well. So you didn't lose your leg right away either, did you?
No, yeah. So I was injured in 2012 and I had my original amputation done in 2019. So I was trying to save my foot. I was injured in a work accident in California, had my foot crushed by a piece of equipment. And then from there, I was subsequently diagnosed with the worst chronic pain condition known to medical science called complex regional pain syndrome, or CRPS for short. And it constantly felt like I was being lit on fire and stabbed repeatedly and just felt like I was being crushed in a vice. And I had to go through like the whole kind of like limb salvage type stuff, and then also navigating, insurance and workers' comp and all of that. I had to jump through all the hoops in terms of, all the different treatment options that I had to explore. And then it came down to the point where I had, probably like 6 different surgeries that didn't work. My nerve condition was spreading higher and higher up my leg. And I was presented with the option to amputate in hopes of hitting the reset button. I was given a 99% chance of being completely pain-free if I amputated. So I decided to move forward with that, thinking we would all go to Vegas if we had a 99% chance, right? So I decided to do that, and it was like gasoline on a wildfire, and it was the absolute worst possible thing for me. So yeah, it again, that spun wildly out of control. But yeah, now able, to your point, Josh, I have a bunch of different prosthetics. I often feel like the bone collector of fake body parts. But yeah, I go to each race with about 3 different legs, and there's a very, very strong monetary factor that comes into consideration with that. And especially if you look at it through the lens of like what insurance doesn't cover. Running as an amputee is considered a luxury and not a medical necessity. So the insurance companies don't pay for that. So anything more than this walking leg that I just showed you comes from the user's pocket. Or, Challenged Athletes Foundation does a great job as well, and there's other foundations too. But it's typically the user that has to find a way to acquire it. Insurance company's not going to help.
Wow. And Annie, in your world, like what have you had to overcome with epilepsy in order to get to races, to be involved in races? Are there any things that you've had to overcome other than just your physical ailments and going through that? But is it hard to work with race organizers or get set up and get the things that you need at events?
It's been a bit of a learning thing for me because I don't ever want to cause any issues, or if I'm honest, like not with triathlon, but other, say like I was going to go to a fitness class, for example, or something. I've had a very mixed reaction if I've been honest about having epilepsy. So I previously used to keep it quite quiet if I'm like, I wouldn't tell people, which is not the best thing to do, just because I get such a reaction of, oh, I don't know if you should do this. I think one of them was like a hot yoga class and they didn't want me to go in. They were worried about me. And I was like, I'm going to be fine. I promise you I'm going to be fine. And so I kind of bottled it up for a little while. And then I realized I need, for my own safety, because my seizures were getting a bit out of hand, I need to talk to people. So now what I do is I feel more confident with it. And I email the race directors beforehand. And I'll say, this is the condition I have. This is what I've put into place. This is where I've raced previously. This is what I've achieved. And then say, is it possible to meet with your medical team? Can I meet with someone beforehand? It varies from race organizer to race organizer, but a lot of it has been about me being a bit more confident and owning this than bottling it up. By bottling up as well, that puts a lot of stress on me, and stress is such a huge trigger for my seizures. So it's like, what's going to be best here? Do I just, if they tell me I can't race, and it's a risk I have to take, really? Yeah, race organizers have become far more open-minded, and they're very, I've had Oceanside, for example, was probably one of the best experiences. They were so accommodating. I got to swim early. They had a stand-up paddleboard person with me to just by the side. It just relieves a lot of stress and anxiety, and that in itself helps my epilepsy. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but like that really does take some of the pressure off, and so I race happy, really, which is good.
I have a question for both of you. First, with Annie, this is very interesting to me because my partner, who Josh met last year, she has epilepsy as well, and it's controlled right now with medications and all of that. And I wanted to ask you, like, I'm sure there are a lot of athletes in your position that don't take the risk, or, well, quote unquote risk, of doing an Ironman or entering a triathlon or being more active. What advice would you give them? Like, what if there's a checklist? Like, what would you tell them they need to ask race organizers, or what they need to be aware of their bodies? I know each body is different. Like, what are the cues that you look for to yourself? And David, also, like, same question. I'm sure there are a lot of athletes in your position that want to jump into triathlon. Like, what? Because there's not a lot of information for athletes in your position. Like, where do they go? Like, if they want to get a bike fit, I'm sure there's a lot of different aspects that need to take into consideration. Yeah, that question for both of you guys.
Go ahead, Andy.
Thank you. Well, it is a tricky one, as you say. Like, everyone's if you're looking at epilepsy, it's very different for everybody. I think one of the main things I will always say is, if you were wanting to do like triathlon or enter a race of some sort, and you have got something similar to me, just know when to say no. Do you know what I mean? If you're not feeling right, you have to just put your hands up and go, today is not that day. There'll be another day I can do it. You have to be quite honest with yourself. I also have to know when to put the brakes on, or just have a day of smiling and high-fiving, because you just have to know your body and just listen to your body as much as possible. But yeah, I would always say, the things that I would do is I would contact race organizers, see what they suggest, if they're happy with it. Put the protections in place. That's why I think it's so important for you and for people on the race course. Do you know what I mean? People out there that, if they don't know what's happening or how to help you, fill in the back of your bib. I wear a medical bracelet. I think they're the main things I would say, but I would definitely listen to yourself. You're the one who knows what your condition is more than anybody else, and you just have to be honest with yourself.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any foundations that you use, Annie, that people could get more information on epilepsy, or like managing that? Or
it's tricky because I've not really met many people who do triathlon with epilepsy. We're quite rare, apparently. So there's not any kind of like challenge athletes. I love Challenge Athlete Foundation. I went to visit them a few years ago. Absolutely love what they do. They're fantastic. There's a lot of you've got the Epilepsy Foundation in the States and Epilepsy Society in the UK. There are a lot of charities that can give you information on it. The conditions very complex with different types of seizures, different types of triggers. There's not a one size fits all, unfortunately. Like I said, they'll give you information generalizing about how to exercise and stay fit, but it definitely is. It depends on your seizures, depends what you experience. But yeah, it's listening to yourself, essentially.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's everybody's body is different, right? And especially when you start removing parts and adding parts, and being an amputee and stuff like that. To Annie's point, one of the biggest things that I do when I get to a race is I contact the race directors. I'm always at transition early. I'm trying to, when Athlete Village opens up, I'm trying to meet with the refs. I'm trying to meet with people that are in charge of triath, or in a part of transition. And just trying to make sure all my I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Like I was saying, I have a separate running leg. I have a separate cycling leg. I'm now fortunate to have like a leg that's able to help me get through transition quickly too, which is pretty rad. But with that, I have a lot of no pun intended, but moving parts, right?
Right.
So I'm always and one of the things is, is when I get out of the water, coordinating, okay, well, I need to have people, grab me underneath my shoulders and then, put me into a pre-transition area where my transition leg is waiting for me. So, there's again a lot of moving parts to try and coordinate with that. But it's having those conversations and just, I guess, being vulnerable with that and just really being upfront with what it is that I need. In terms of if somebody is wanting to get started in this process and you're an amputee or somebody with some sort of, physical disability or, maybe even an intellectual disability or, a wide range, Challenge Athletes Foundation is absolutely great. There's another foundation as well that's doing an incredible job with triathlon specifically. It's Dare to Try. I believe they're based out of Illinois. A great resource. But yeah, a lot of it's listening to your body and, really asking questions, reaching out. I think Annie's world may be a little bit more niche with epilepsy, but with being an amputee, there's a little bit more of us that are, in the endurance space. I'm always more than willing and happy and love to have any conversation I can or be a source of like, hey, here's, some people that you could reach out to. Here's some considerations, and just, try and be a resource as much as I can. But yeah, there's a lot of great information that's out there. I think ultimately the race directors want us to be out there too,
Yeah.
Not only is it like creating the equality within sports, but we're all battling something on that race course, right? Unfortunately for me, like mine just happens to be a little bit more visible, but it gives me a really unique opportunity while I'm on the course to be able to connect with people and like try and share the mindset that I use when I'm struggling or when other people are struggling. And it gives me a beautiful and just really, really awesome opportunity to connect with people and try and be a source of encouragement. And I think race directors appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think triathlon is an amazing sport because it's a great equalizer for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, how your physical composition or whatever. Everybody's going through the same journey.
Yeah.
Nobody is doing a mile for each other. We all cover the same distance. We all have our demons. We all have our battles, and it's great to see how on race day people come together, no matter their background. And I think it's that one moment where there's no disabilities or everybody's in the same pot doing the same thing. So I just love it because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the run.
Sorry.
On the run, we're all physically challenged at some point, right? By that part of the race, we're all hurting pretty good, right?
Yeah. Well,
Especially going up and down those ramps in Oceanside.
Yeah.
My God.
I was just about to say, we're all as daft as each other. Like, we're all just looking at each other. We didn't just want to do one sport. We wanted to do three, and like we're all here together. I absolutely love it. To everyone else's point, like the community is just fantastic. And
yeah.
I mean, like I say, I'm on the course for quite a while, and by that point, people are. I've got people walking past with the medals, just cheering you on, giving me high fives, and I'm like, this is just the best, and it's such a positive sport to be involved with.
Right.
And you both have had some really good and really great experiences with Ironman, but David and I have had some recent conversations where there's some challenges that you have working within the Ironman brand specifically and getting to the next level. And you've had the chance to race in Kona. David, for you, it's a little more difficult for you to get to a race like Kona or a world championship, right?
It is, yeah. And I was just having these conversations yesterday. Trying to create an equitable place for physically challenged athletes. People that have an amputation or hand cycle or intellectually challenged. Category. We don't have the ability to earn a spot based off performance to get to the world championships or even be world champions. So yeah, again, trying to create those equitable resources. For me to go to a world championship race, 70.3 or full, I have to either be gifted a spot through a foundation or I have to enter a lottery with Ironman, which again is not performance based.
And Annie, you've had the opportunity to be one of those gifted athletes, and you were given that opportunity. But do you also feel like what David's experiencing would be a huge boost for the challenge athletes and the other community people that you're racing with and could help grow the sport even more?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's learning as more conversations are happening, and I think it's ever evolving. And I think, especially with like races where there's PCID athletes, I think they are becoming more and more inclusive and understanding. But I do think that would be amazing. I do think that would be such a positive thing to do. I am extremely lucky about having a spot given to me for Kona, which I debated back and forth because I hadn't qualified like everybody else. But I felt that it was an opportunity to be able to talk more about epilepsy. That was it really, and to try something that I don't think many people have been able to do with the condition. But I think it would be amazing if there was like a qualifying for PC athletes. Definitely, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I believe that we're communal beings and that we thrive in a sense of community, right? And if you open the door and create that opportunity for that community to have the opportunity to, be a world champion rather than just a participant, I think that you would grow the numbers at the start lines. I think that you would create a healthy and thriving community that way. You would create a competitive community that way, and it just it kind of raises all boats in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I think that it would be massively powerful, in a lot of different ways, not just for, the athlete, but for, the race organizers themselves, whether it's Ironman, whether it's T100, whether it is, anything. It makes sense to be able to have those and just really show that anything is truly possible.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I ask a question? Sorry for my lack of knowledge, but is this over most kind of races? Do you find that, David? Is that most races don't have something in place where, I don't know, that you can't qualify for different things or win?
Or even win, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the inclusiveness is definitely there, right? Like if I was to get first place at an Ironman race, I would get on the podium, right? But in all reality, it doesn't really count for anything. It doesn't account for points moving forward to anything. In other races, such as UTMB, Ironman owns UTMB, right? So that's also kind of the same fight there that we're also trying to, push things forward. I do think that Spartan, I raced in the World Paris Spartan event in 2019 right after I had my first amputation. I did it on one foot, and I believe that we got in like fourth place for that, but first place was able to get celebrated and was able to get a check for that and so on. But yeah, I mean, most races, and different racing platforms will let you, like, they're not going to tell you no, right? But it's definitely not anything more than creating an accessible environment. There's not necessarily racing towards anything greater of being a world champion and so on.
Well, I know, but something like the Boston Marathon, the New York City Marathon, like there are absolutely categories that are set aside for athletes like yourself, one leg, two leg, and I believe they're even broken out even further than that.
Yeah.
That I've seen. So I've talked to a few of them. It's being done elsewhere in endurance sports. I hope the conversations continue forward for your sake and for others and for the future, that we can get there, because other industries are doing it for sure.
Yeah, I've talked to Dave over at Boston Marathon, the race organizer over there, fantastic guy. What he's done with the Boston Marathon and creating the categories, it's been really, really incredible. I understand that it's also a very challenging process logistically in a lot of ways to be able to make that happen. If you look at the classification process that athletes have to go through for marathon in general, it's the track and field classification process. And shoot, I don't even know off the top of my head how many different classifications there are for track and field. But if you look at, like the Paralympics kind of thing, how big is that team and how many different variable, disabilities, individuals have, it covers a very, very wide range. I think with paratriathlon, I'm classified as a PTS4. So PTS stands for paratri standing. Then my level of impairment is number 4, and that's typically judged off of like where it is that I have my limb loss at and how strong my muscles are and my level of flexibility and this, that, and the other, and a few different things. but I want to say that there's probably about 6 or 7 different classifications right now that are acknowledged through World Triathlon. So yeah, again, it's a big process to try and navigate, but it's not impossible to navigate. So, it's just, it takes, it's going to be a process. And, I think that it would benefit us to start that process rather than say, no, there's no opportunity. Right.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you being open about that, because it does sound like, obviously, the USA Triathlon, the World Triathlon, the Olympics, all that stuff is there in place. To get it across the board with other age group opportunities, I think is something that we're all kind of advocating for. And I think hopefully we'll get there one day, because it is. I mean, everything kind of runs off of this. This started with an Olympic sport, and then it became bigger. And Dave knows, because Dave is one of the original Kona guys. He goes back in the day with Bob Abbott, and Dave McGilvery's now running his 50-something Boston as the race director, but he's also one of the OG Ironmans as well. So hopefully that can be some cross-pollination.
Percent. And, you'll often hear people like Bob Abbott talk about, the power of Kona, right? And that experience and the island, and how magical that experience is for everybody. Like, how powerful of an experience could that be for somebody that has a disability of some sort? Or Annie, I'd even love to know your experience with that. But just the magic and the power of that experience. And for somebody that doesn't even, that doesn't fit the physical scheme of what, a quote unquote able-bodied athlete looks like how powerful of an experience is that for them? And also everybody that's there, that's seeing that they're using what it is that is their reason why to possibly not be there, but they're using it to be there. Yeah. And they're using it to push forward and conquer this amazing feat of just, athletic endurance. And it's just a powerful and beautiful experience that I think, people should definitely have the opportunity of being able to do, and just having that equitable place that's huge.
Well, I think that's a good segue for you, Annie, to talk about 2023 and how, and what Kona meant to you, and kind of how did you get there? What was kind of the progress of your triathlon career to get you to a point to be ready to tackle Kona and everything that it is, and then how it all went?
Well, it's so hard. I mean, obviously, doing an Ironman is ridiculously hard to train for, I will say. And I think I'm probably a one and done. I think probably that distance, I'm perhaps a one and done, because it was so hard on my epilepsy and my body training for it. And I had to divert and pivot with my training, because I'd be absolutely exhausted and maybe have a nocturnal seizure or something would happen. So I'd have to just pivot as much as possible. My main goal in all of that was just to reach the finish line, which tends to be my theme, I think, is just going to get to the finish line. But it's definitely a core moment. Crossing that finish line was so epic. Yeah, it was because I'd obviously trained so hard for it as well, and had to kind of adapt things quite a lot. But I'd done it's in 70.3, and I'd done different ones. I'd done Escape from Alcatraz, and I'd done a few different kind of races as well, like some small, more local ones in the run up. And I'd done which is now not a race, the Ironman 70.3 Stafford, that one, which is nice and hilly, and it just so happened to be one of the hottest days of the year in the UK. So I think that set me up quite well. So I'd done that, and then Ironman invited me to take part, and I was I don't know if I can do this, but let's give it a go and see how far we can push my body and my mind to deal with it. I had to deal with a lot of resilience on the day. Had a bit of an issue at the start of the swim, managed to get off okay. Wasn't happy with my time, because swimming is actually something I adore. I absolutely love swimming more than anything else, which most people with epilepsy try and avoid, but I absolutely love swimming. And then got off on the bike, and then got 2 flats. So I got 2 flats that I had to deal with, and I'd never actually had a flat. I'd practiced, but I'd never actually had one before. So I was just getting it sorted, and I was so behind. So I was very delayed and everything. It was a bit stressful. And I thought, as I was coming down Harvey, I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm going to get to that finish line. I'm going to get it. I'm just going to do this and it's going to feel absolutely amazing. And the fact that people still waited out for people like me who had such a massive setback, and they were still just as excited when the first people came through, I was so amazing. One thing I will say about my condition is because it's invisible, I actually sometimes feel like I want to put a big sticker on my back that says, by the way, I do have epilepsy and I'm still managing to get to the finish line. So, because I obviously think people don't necessarily understand all that you have to go through with it. But Kona was one of the best experiences in my life. And I still can't believe I managed to complete it with everything that I went through on the day, and also, you know, with all the mishap with my training. But yeah, I mean, David, if you can go to Kona, I think you'll absolutely love it. It's just such a great atmosphere.
That's the dream.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, I have a funny Kona story. I raced Kona in 2022, and I had probably my worst Ironman run. I was low on potassium, and my arms were cramping. They went like this, so I had like little T-Rex arms, and I was like shuffling my way into the finish line. And this athlete was running by me, and he happened to be an amputee, and he handed me like a salt stick too, and he was like, "Oh, here, take this. It helps with cramps. I never cramp on my legs with this. Just take this." And I just thought it was the best experience ever, because that's what it's all about: helping each other out. We're just athletes at the end of the day, and I think that was like a moment that marked my triathlon journey, because it just showed me that we're all suffering, we're all helping each other out. And I wanted to ask you, Annie, do you think specific race conditions trigger your epilepsy a bit more? Like, say, hot and humid condition, like race atmosphere adds a bit more stress to your body, and then it may affect you more than like cooler conditions?
Yeah, so I would say that, so one thing I always have to be very aware of, if I was going to ever have a seizure, it would probably be on the run because of my heart rate, and my body can't decide what's stress and what's not.
Okay.
So obviously heat, yes, that can obviously elevate my heart rate. So I didn't say this at the time, but for Kona, I knew that I, as a Brit who can't deal with the heat, I had to find a way of training in the heat. So I went to Lanzarote to train there because I knew that the wind was going to be quite similar to Kona. So I thought that was a huge stress for me. So I went to do it there, and obviously got acclimatized heat-wise, went to Tenerife to do the same. And I really tried to get my body ready for that heat if it was going to hit, because I'd actually had quite a bad time at Staffs. I got a bit heat exhausted and really struggled, and I'd actually had a seizure post-race because of it. But yeah, definitely conditions, and one thing I was going to say, it's controlling the controllables. What is in my power? What do I need to do to accommodate myself as much as possible? And yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Heat training and wind were the things that I needed to deal with. So I thought, right, let's get that done. But yeah, it would do normally. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Right. And speaking about controlling the controllables, David, do you practice like transitions? I know transitions are very specific to you than most athletes. How do you practice that when you go to a race? Do you get annoyed with people that are trying to help you and maybe are a bit in your way, that you're just let me do it myself? Or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, fortunately, I don't want to say that there's not people helping me, but there is out of the water kind of thing, which I definitely need. People just grab me under the shoulders as I'm, exiting the water and going to a pre-transition area. But after that, I'm like everybody else out on the course. I don't necessarily get a whole lot of assistance, which is great. I don't have, a whole lot of people, trying to give me a lot, which is fantastic. We're all out there. I pay for, all of the hard times, all the punishment, all of that, just like everybody else is. I want to experience that and the hardships of the race, just like everybody else does.
No, my question was more in the lines on the day-to-day, the training-wise, like the race simulations and all of that type of stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I definitely do not practice transitions nearly as much as I should.
You and everyone else.
Yeah, right. I think a lot of people could probably, unfortunately, say the same thing. I definitely need to practice transitions more. It's been something that I've tried to be more intentional with. I live in Cincinnati and the weather hasn't been fantastic, so call that a terrible excuse. But yeah, I haven't practiced as much of it as I need to. But I'm trying to be more intentional with it. It's working good so far. But yeah.
Yeah, practicing transitions is the best thing I ever did. My husband's actually a coach as well, and that's still time, which is what we always say. That's still free time. I actually got a podium, not in Ironman, another triathlon, based on the fact I was 20 seconds quicker getting my wetsuit off in T1 than the other lady in my category. And I got podium not from my swim or my bike or my run, but how quick I could get my wetsuit off.
There we go.
So it's worth it.
I think we can all look back at most of our races and be like, wow, if I had cut 30 seconds or a minute and 30 seconds, well, that time looks a lot better in your head.
Yeah. But that's also one of the things that I love about 70.3 and longer is, it's a little bit more forgiving in the transitions. Coming from the sprint world, I was racing with Team USA's paratriathlon team, and in a sprint, you have such little margin for error, right? Like it's, the transition length is the transition length. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. But in terms of, expediting the process with taking off your wetsuit and being versed in that, like, that world it's so much more quick pace, especially, super tri too, right? So, but yeah, 70.3, it's a little bit more forgiving and trying to get better at it, of course, to get that free time.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I definitely faff when I'm in a longer distance. This was a sprint. So, as you say, it's totally different.
So do you still do sprints and shorter distances as well, Annie? Or is that something that you pick up throughout the year or try and stay in touch with?
Times, it depends. I'm kind of I don't know what the way is to sort of say, I'm more like experience triathlete, if you like. Sometimes I'll book races that I can tack on to a holiday on a vacation or something. There's one in San Diego. There's a San Diego sprint triathlon in September that it's on there. I think it's on my birthday. So I was like, well, why don't we do that while I'm over here? So I do them now and again, just to kind of break up the longer distance. And recovery time's a lot quicker as well. But I also, David, when you were talking about the swim and needing help getting out, I actually, when I can, I try and volunteer at races I'm not doing. So, and I always go on the swim exit because I just want to help people do the bit that they normally hate the most, which is the swim, and say that they've done it. Now they've got the best part to come and help them out the water. So I'll do that as well as doing a few sprints as well.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome.
It's funny you say that.
Go ahead, Fed.
No, I was just going to say that it's funny that you say that, Annie, because for me, and I'm sure for Josh as well, during a race, in my mind, I'm like, get through the swim and then the race starts. So I'm just like, get the swim over with. I just want to get to my bike and then the race can start. So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, I've this Oceanside was the first time where I had the least amount of that feeling, which felt good. I put a lot of time into my swim in the winter, and it paid off in Oceanside. Still not the fastest time I wanted, but I was actually able to know that I was going to get through the swim no matter what, and didn't mind the sea lions barking at us and whatever traffic that we had to deal with. But Oceanside, it will always be a memory I'll always have, is one of those first finisher picks that I got from Oceanside 2 years ago. I was on the ramp, wobbling for the first time ever, doing a 70.3, coming out, didn't know I had to kick and swim faster coming in. And I immediately stopped feeling bad for myself, as the background of the picture was one of the challenged athletes on the ground with a team of volunteers around them putting on the prosthetic leg. And I was like, that's exactly what this whole community is all about. And I have nothing to complain about. And woe is me getting to my bike and I had a long transition. No, I mean, David, what your whole community goes through, and Annie, for you to bring to light or even give an opportunity to somebody going through what you're going through, because it is silent, right? Like anyone can pass you on Kona and they really don't know what you're going through. And David, it's quite obvious. So I do get the differences there. And you talk about somebody like Chris Nikic, it's apparent what Chris is battling, but for Annie, it's quite different. So I would imagine that's been something, like you've mentioned before, that is a little harder for you to overcome at a race specifically.
Yeah, it is quite tricky. You just get on with it. I want to have fun, and I kind of think like what you were saying, there are people perhaps in like having it harder than I am. But yeah, it's just about getting to the finish line for me and, enjoying it. And because I'm normally back at the pack, I tend to talk to people on the run. Like we have wow, this is a spicy hill, isn't it? And, just, do you know what I mean? I think I said that a few times on the bike, actually, when people were flying past me. But yeah, just, it is hard. It is difficult, but hopefully by me being more confident in owning what I'm dealing with is helping. I've had a few people actually get into triathlon who are epileptics like me. They're starting the first ones out. I've obviously always say to them, make sure you're safe. Go get checked out by a doctor first before you start doing this. But yeah, there's been other people who've come forward and have said that because I'm being quite open and honest about it, it's made them feel less alone and less isolated, and they want to get into sport now. So, you know, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, which, like, I'm sure you guys started doing this because, like, why we all started doing this. Like, I want to see if I'm physically able to complete this. And then came the competing element, and then came the awareness element. Was that how it happened with you guys, or was it different?
David, after you.
For me, honestly, like I amputated my foot for the dream of running again, right? And, I started doing that, and then I found triathlon and I fell in love with it. But honestly, what I found for me is that it was and is just an incredibly beautiful place to put my trauma.
Mm.
It's medicine, it's therapy, it's community. I get to revisit like the broken version of me, or the version of me that thought that I was broken, and show myself how strong I am. And I lean into that in my training and in my races. And again, it's just, I feel like a lot of medicine and therapy is here. It's, whatever challenge you're battling, X, Y, or Z, like it's such a beautiful place to use all of that. So for me, like it came into just, starting with wanting to show myself how strong I am and how powerful I am. And that, I'm not that broken version of myself that I thought that I was. I'm giving myself every opportunity to, bank all of those experiences and, which took me into Norseman and all that good stuff. But also now, like I'm really wanting to be kind of an example, and maybe the same with you, Annie. It's, showing others what is possible, even with battling these challenges. And just my hope is that I can just be a great example and show, what is possible and what you can do, and, kind of the strength of the human spirit, despite all the things that are, telling you not to. Well, that's the reason why I go into the storm. You know what I mean? And I've fallen in love with it every time, and just want to encourage other people to do the same.
That's amazing. David, you're very inspiring. You are amazing. I think what you do is just incredible. So you are making that impact. I do think you're amazing. Yeah. Kind of, I went in to see how far I could push myself to give myself a bit of focus. I got quite depressed after being diagnosed with epilepsy. I lost my driving license. It completely changed everything for me, lifestyle wise. And I kind of got into a bit of a rut, should we say. And so when I entered that first triathlon, I had to learn how to do front crawl. I couldn't swim properly. And I found that it diverted the attention, as I say, what I said previously. And then as I started racing, I started realizing, like, I'm quite resilient. Let's see how far we can push myself. And I think that's been the thing that I keep chasing every time I cross the finish line. I'm like, oh, what else can I do? And then as like during that journey of still feeling like that, I do definitely, hopefully me talking about this is kind of a nice open, like gives a bit of communication between people having an invisible disability. So people who struggle with things that you can't see, and knowing that you can still achieve amazing things, and it doesn't matter how quick you go. That's quite a big thing for me, is that I am quite, like, I am a bit back of the pack sometimes. I'm feeling great and I'm feeling good and I can speed on a little bit more, but sometimes I'm not, and it's just about reaching the finish line. So I hope also by me talking about what I'm doing, I'm not saying that you need to be the fastest or the quickest. Everyone can get involved as well, even if you do have an invisible disability. So I'm hoping that's what I'm showing with it, and so that's what kind of keeps driving me.
That's amazing. It's we talk about the community and the sport and what it does for so many people. I've got my story. Fed's got his story. You both clearly have your stories and inspirations, and you never know who's listening and who's gonna take inspiration from that. And to me, that's the power of everything that we're all doing, and you two especially. So it's been awesome having you guys on, and I'm glad that we've all connected and done this collaboratively as well too. I think it's really cool to have both perspectives. I do want to bring it back to some of our normal questions that we do ask some of our pro athletes that we have on, but one of our favorite ones, and you guys can each answer these separately, and we'll start with Annie first. But you've got the same training programs that we've got, and you're still doing all the hours and all the swim, bike, run, and recovery and all that on those long training sessions. And maybe an outdoor bike is where this one follows in the most. But what is the craziest thing you've ever eaten during one of your training sessions because you ran out of your normal fuel or stopped somewhere on the side of the road?
I mean, craziest things I've eaten. I haven't got anything crazy, but I can tell you what I like to eat when I am on the bike sometimes, which is a bit weird. I guess I don't think you even have it in the States. So I used to make, if I hadn't got anything with, I'd always get it's like cheese and bovril. Have you heard of bovril? It's like Marmite, but it's like a meat-based one rather than a veggie one, and I eat those. But I'll be honest, there hasn't been anything really crazy, unfortunately. I haven't got a great story there. But yeah, it's a bit random what I do tend to eat. I do tend to eat proper food on the bike rather than anything else. And there can be some whatever I've smushed up in the kitchen beforehand. Yeah, that's not very interesting, sorry.
No, that's actually very interesting. That actually leads me to another follow-up question real quickly is what do you do on the bike for races? Like how does that work for you? Is there anything you have to do differently to overcome something or make sure that you don't have an episode?
I obviously always have to make sure I'm really hydrated. So I basically have like a proper regimented plan of how I have to just basically keep grazing constantly through the entire bike, like small bits all the time. I have to keep eating, and it's either a combination of like a gel, a Cliff Block, and then I often have, if I'm racing in the UK, I'll have like the cheese things I've told you about, but then also like those, you get these and they're amazing. They're the little pretzel bites that have peanut butter in. Do you know which ones I mean? Yeah, so I normally
like
have
the combos or something.
Yeah, something like that, and they work really well. But yeah, I have to keep on top of hydration, because if I start to wobble or I get like it can trigger something, so I have to be really hot on it. I used to use like a glucose, remember Super Sapiens? I used to use that to really help me, because that would keep me really on top of it. But I learned a lot from that I can do without it now, which has been really, really good. But yeah, just keeping on top of hydration is the biggest one for me.
Yeah, I think that's why Super Sapiens didn't pick up as much as it should have, because it taught you what you needed to learn about yourself, and then you're like, why am I paying for this anymore? Yes. I know exactly what I need to eat, what I need to drink, and I think that's what was big of a problem for Super Sapiens. Speaking about that, do you do like a sodium load, carb load, sodium load to prevent dehydration as well?
Yes. And then I forgot to mention it, I obviously have to take my medication. So that's in there as well. So I have to if I'm not on time, it's not awful, but it's not great, because it might not happen during the race, but it might impact after the race. So I have to be quite careful. So sometimes, depending on the length of the race, what time it starts, I might have to have a special needs bag. It varies. It depends on what time things are. Kona, I had to put it in various bags just in case I dropped it. I was so panicked. I think I went a bit over the top and had it in all different areas just to be safe. But I just couldn't risk it.
Awesome.
Your own little scavenger hunt.
Yes, basically, yes. If I always think that I always go over the top and extra with the nutrition and medication and everything, because I just think if I drop something or something, I don't know, I've got to be careful. But that's it, really.
Did you drop anything at Oceanside like everyone else in some of those bottles?
I don't. I'm like, there's a bump coming up. Just take it easy. No. I've got a really good system. But I did have a bottle go flying at a previous 70.3. I hit a pothole and it just shot off. So I think that taught me a lot. Again, all the controllables. So I got a different bottle holder, bottle cage. So learned from that one.
So David, how about you? Any crazy foods that you've eaten during training or in a race?
No, I try and, to Annie's point, control the controllables, right? So with that being said, I have had, so last year when I was in Oceanside leading up to the race, I commonly have low ferritin levels, which lowers my iron level. So I always try to replenish my ferritin. And I was told to eat oysters. Oysters have a high amount of iron in them. So I went and had raw oysters literally the day before 70.3, thinking that I was going to, I was going to need iron and so on. And that ended up putting me in the hospital the day before Oceanside, hooked up to an IV. And the doctor was like, you probably shouldn't do this. I'm like, I'm definitely still going to do it. So the crazy thing is I put my face in the water for the swim, and the first thing I tasted was those damn shellfish.
God.
I'm like, just don't throw up. Just don't throw up.
Oh my gosh.
So in terms of controlling the controllables, it's like everything is as bland and as straight to the point as I need it. And I use the gels. I use the gels and just try and keep things as bland and as predictable as possible.
Now, I didn't actually say this. I don't know. So I've more recently been trying a keto diet just from an epilepsy perspective because it's meant to be better, and I've actually found that works so much better for me, and I'll eat a lot of that kind of stuff now on which I changed this time on the bike, so I didn't eat the same things, but it seems to work quite well for me for that. So a lot of cheese.
Will you use then like the ketones that have become popular now during racing, like to supplement during the race?
I haven't. I'm doing a bit of, this is quite new, if I'm honest. So I'm trying and seeing what I'm finding okay and what works, So I mean that I'll keep you updated though. I'll let you know how it goes. But so far it's been a good transition.
They work, like the exogenous ketones work really well, and I used them when I did a transition from sprint distance, Olympic distance to 70.3 on poles. My coach wanted me to tap more into my fat burning metabolism, so I switched into a more keto/paleo diet, and on race day I use ketones to spare the glycogen for when I need it, and it definitely helps with inflammation wise and cognitive stuff. It helps quite a lot. So definitely a big advocate of using ketones. They taste, they're not the best tasting supplement, but they do work.
They're probably better than the oysters that David doesn't want to taste anymore.
I was like, maybe not oysters.
Maybe David can do one challenge, oyster with ketones. See how that.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, like an oyster shooter with some, ketone IQ or something.
Yeah.
We don't need Joe Skipper's beer mile. We got David Whelan's oyster mile.
There we go.
So the last question we'll ask, and is this actually would be quite interesting for the two of you. What, if any, would you add as a fourth sport to triathlon to help you up a notch and actually compete better than other people because you're so good at it?
I definitely can't answer that one. I need to have a think. There isn't anything at this point.
Yeah.
What's the talent that you have, David, that we could add to triathlon? And it can be at the beginning or the end of the race.
I have turned into, uh, like a pogo stick, right? Like I could balance on one foot and I could hop from one spot to the other so quickly that, like, if we did some sort of one-footed hopping challenge, I'm destroying everybody.
It's fabulous.
Yeah. So, like, you have to do transition on one foot. You're all done.
Mine would totally not work for triathlon, but I'm going to throw it in there. Snowboarding would probably be the one that I would have to do. I have thought about winter tri, but the idea of cross-country skiing, I'm not quite sure I'm there. Probably if we could suddenly snowboard, that'd be fine.
You're actually not the first one to say
Oh, really?
skiing or snowboarding either. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's wide open to anything. Like winter sports are fair game for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll go with snowboarding. I could do a few box jumps, do a few things. If it's like on skills, I could do some of that, some jumps and stuff.
Would it be swim, bike, run, snowboard? Or would it be snowboard, swim, bike, run? What would the order be?
Oh, yeah, hang on. You'd have quite a lot of outfit transition. If it were we'd have to probably snowboard at the end, best of last.
Okay.
Go stick, where are we putting it?
Transitions.
Oh, yeah. I mean, can I join in with that one?
I could see that at like the end of Norseman or something like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of like Patagon Man too, you were mentioning earlier, and it made me think there's a lot of trail running and things like that. How hard is that compared to? I mean, I would imagine most of your training you do on roads, or do you do a lot of trail running, and how difficult does that get with the uneven surface?
I don't do a lot of trail running. I need to be more intentional with it. There are some decent trails around here. But yeah, I mean, the technicality of it and trying to navigate that with a prosthetic, it's a little challenging. I just got a new running leg made that's really, really cool. I wore it for the first time in Oceanside in that race, and it worked out great. But being able to, so a traditional running blade looks like an upside down question mark, and you run on a very small surface of it. It's probably like maybe a 3-inch by 3-inch little pad of that. But now I'm able to wear a shoe with the running blade. So I'd be able to navigate uneven surfaces pretty easy with that. But it's a very, very customized running prosthetic.
Ernie. All right. Well, I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. Why don't you guys take these last few minutes here just to kind of give us an idea of where people can go for more awareness? Where can they follow you? And most importantly, what's the next race?
Go ahead, Anne.
That's a good question because I haven't actually entered the next race yet. But I have ideas of which one I want to do. So I want to volunteer at the Chattanooga 70.3 like I've done previously. So that's just to keep me in the bubble. And then I'll enter a couple of local ones before I would like to do the new La Quinta course. I've done Indian Wells twice, but I really want to do the new course. So that one's the one I'm aiming for the end of the year, but hopefully a different one in between. I guess for more awareness, I would always suggest the epilepsy charities. And I'd actually also like to highlight actually women in triathlon while I'm here about it, because obviously that's a huge thing. And if other women are interested in triathlon, there's like Feisty Triathlon, fantastic. Women for Tri, etc., really good and can kind of help you in the first steps to getting involved in it. You can find me on social media at Hey Annie Brooks, where a lot of the time my dog features in various things. She comes running with me. She's a support dog as well. So yeah, you'll find lots of adventures with us on that.
Awesome. How about you, David?
Yeah, you can find a lot of great information on like Challenged Athletes Foundation. Dare to Try is another great one. Also reach out to me. You can find me on social media at Dave_Unbreakable on Instagram. I'm most active on there.
Yeah. And what's your next race? I know you've got quite the calendar. Your calendar looks like mine, just a little bit more extreme.
Yeah. Oh, my calendar. So next up is St. George 70.3, and I go to Eagleman 70.3, and then Muncie in July. I'm getting married August 16th, so I told my fiance I'm going to take a couple months off of that. What's after that? I go to Shanghai, China, and do a 70.3, and I'm also speaking there to their Triathlon Federation, which is cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I need to fill my calendar.
Wait, David, are you going to do like... Are you going to trick your fiance into doing a honeymoon, and then there's a triathlon there, and then you're like, oh, babe, I'm sorry. I just happened to do this race.
I have already tried trying to work that in. She's like, you're not bringing your bike. Because we're going to Italy for our honeymoon. So, yeah. And I'm like, we could stop by Nice.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, so after China, I go to Patagonia, Chile for Patagon Man in December, and then Challenge Israel in January.
Nice.
Wowza, that's a lot. I might need to get some advice from all of you about which ones I should do.
We got to get your calendar on when you're in the States and when you're over there. And fill it out. I just feel like I've always, coming out of Oceanside for me I put a lot into that and training. If I didn't have that next race ready to go, I probably would have taken a week, 2-3 weeks off. And then it's like, okay, back to almost ground zero again and training. Whereas I was lucky to have the Boston Marathon where I took a couple of days off, body fully recovered, and then it was right back at it and something to look forward to. So I'm a big proponent of, for all my athletes I coach and for anyone I talk to, have something on the calendar to line up to.
Yes.
Maybe not as crazy as David and I, but have something on the calendar.
Hey, you guys are great triathletes that do very good times. This is a little bit different, and I like to tie it into a racecation, as I call them. Do a race and have vacation. That's normally how I do it.
I got to have you talk to my fiance about that because I love that term, racecation.
It's a great way to see a place. I got into the New York City Marathon this year by running 26.2 virtual miles in Paris last year when I was there on vacation.
There we
Got
go.
to see parts of Paris I'd never seen.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
I took a tour around Oceanside afterwards, did loads of stuff in Oceanside after I got to experience the wonderful California sunshine. So yeah, I'll help you, David. We'll figure it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us, and we'll be back with another one of our regular episodes next week. Other co-hosts, Jenna just completed Ironman Taiwan and qualified for Kona this year as well. So we had a whole team of 7 Mana athletes over there. All of them finished on the podium in Taiwan. It was quite an epic race for them, and can't wait to hear all about it with her. But thank you guys for joining us this week.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.